What's going on, everyone? I'm DSP, and today I want to do something a little different. I've done one of these videos before, but it was more of like a comparison deal where I compared the PS Move to the Microsoft Kinect, talked about their pros and cons. But I want to bring back this series called The King's Verdict. From time to time, when I feel that there is an issue that needs to be resolved, if there's a common question that's being posed by a lot of people, or if there's something that needs to be maybe fleshed out, or maybe it's up for debate, okay? And in particular, what I want to talk about today is the endings of video games. If necessarily an ending of a video game should be long, or if it should be short. And in particular, the one issue that everyone's been talking about for the past 2 weeks ever since I beat this game is the ending of Dragon Age 2. Now, if you're playing Dragon Age 2 right now and you haven't beaten it yet, warning, there are going to be some spoilers in this video, so maybe it's in your best interest to not watch this video until you beat the game. Or if you don't care, or if you're not going to play the game, obviously that makes sense, so you can watch the video with no problems. But the bottom line is this. Dragon Age 2, I really enjoyed the game. Now, I did not play Dragon Age Origins, which is the first game in the Dragon Age franchise. I only played Part 2. So, coming into the game, I knew there would be maybe some holes, some plot issues that I wouldn't understand. But for the most part, once I started playing the game, I understood everything. And with the help of some fans, and also me doing a little bit of research on the internet, I put 2 and 2 together and understood exactly what the game was about. And so, you know, the game was long, 60-hour investment of my time, because I did as many side missions as I could possibly find. I did miss a couple, but I did most of them for the most part. Got every character that was available to me without having to pay for additional DLC, and basically completed the game. Now, if you're not familiar with Dragon Age 2, the way that the game starts out and the way that the plot basically moves along is that you start out with one of the characters from the game, Varric, is being interrogated by a mysterious woman, and you don't know who she is, and you don't know what's really going on, but you get the sense that Varric's being held against his will, and is being told to tell the story of the champion, who ends up being you, and what happened while you were in this town called Kirkwall. And that's pretty much the plot of the entire game, is you are a person who shows up in Kirkwall and go through all these kind of different quests and exploits and things like that. And so at times during the gameplay, it'll cut away from what's going on, you know, supposedly live, and go to the future where Varric's being interrogated by this woman, and he's basically telling her your story of what happened while you were in Kirkwall. So throughout the game this happens, and you get little pieces and snippets of plot and things like that. And then at the end of the game, the reason I really had such a major gripe with this game is because, you know, you put 60 hours of time into it and you expect, alright, well, you know, I got a party of a good 7 people who've helped me throughout the entire game, and there's been a lot of interesting plot twists and things in the game regarding all these characters. At the end of the game, they're going to tell me what happened to all of them, right? So that at least there's like a bridge or whatever, and I feel like there's a feeling of resolution, of completeness, because I played this game for so long. None of that happens, okay? Literally, the game has maybe a minute ending where you find out that the woman who's interrogating Varric is called a Seeker, and she's actually seeking the hero of Ferelden, who's the guy from the first game, Dragon Age Origins, as well as the champion of Kirkwall, who you were through the second game, because you're both missing, and supposedly you both went missing at the same time, which they don't think could possibly be a coincidence. And there is a cameo appearance by a character from the first game, who is also supposedly now a Seeker, and she's seeking the hero of Ferelden as well, and then the game abruptly ends, okay? There's really no explanation of what happened to you, what happened to any of your companions. It pretty much just says, well, they all disappeared, and no one knows what's going on with them, the end. And I kind of just sat there with my jaw open like, like I couldn't believe it. I invested 60 hours of my time into this long role-playing game, and they really just said, oh, you want more? Tough shit. And there's a couple different opinions going on about this right now. There's one camp that says, well, we played Dragon Age Origins, and so it makes a little bit more sense because they understood that there was that cameo appearance by a character at the end of the game, and they feel that that was a good enough ending. It doesn't have to be long and fleshed out. And after all, they gave you some direction of where Dragon Age 3 is going in that ending, so you kind of know what's going to happen. I'm sorry, but I'm in the camp that calls bullshit on that line of reasoning, okay? And there's a couple reasons why. Number one, when I put my time and effort into a game, okay, especially in this day and age when it's a game that's 60 hours long, I expect at least there's going to be some kind of a payout, okay? And this is the problem. It's not only with video games, it's been with TV series, with movie series, with book series. Writers are not understanding the value of investment of time, okay? And let me explain what I mean. I invested 60 hours of my life into this game. You know, there are other games out there that are 8 to 10 hours long, and you beat them, and if they suck or there's fluff, big deal. It was a couple hours. This game really required a significant investment of my time, especially considering this game had a lot of repetitive gameplay, a lot of repetitive side quests that pretty much constituted a grind. You know, it's to me just killing time to get further in the game and level up and do whatever I need to do to beat the game. So when I'm investing that significant amount of time in a game or in a TV series, which I watch for several seasons, or a movie series where I watch a trilogy or several movies, or a book series or anything that's considered an investment of time, there should be some kind of a way to thank you at the end of that investment, or reward you, whether it's a nice long ending, or whether it's, you know, so you get something out of it, so you feel like there's a feeling of completeness, that, okay, I invested the time, but it was well worth it because here's a resolution to the story, or I know what happened to my favorite characters in this story, and it doesn't leave you hanging, okay? One of the reasons that people were so furious, absolutely furious, when The Sopranos TV series ended is because the writers completely fucking copped out, okay? If you didn't see it, after several seasons of this extremely popular gangster drama, the last episode of The Sopranos, there's all these factors coming together. There's a possibility people could get assassinated, that all these crazy things could happen. And the series, at the very end of the last episode, cuts to a black screen and ends, okay? There's no ending to the series. They actually decided, rather than write a definitive ending where we'll get criticized by people, we're just not going to have an ending. We're just going to cut off the episode and leave it open for the viewers to interpret what happens to their favorite characters. And there was such a monstrous backlash of negativity for that cop-out that those writers have pretty much been discredited at this point and been told, you're hacks. You know, you didn't know where your series was going, and it's pathetic that you copped out like that. Now, Dragon Age 2 did not do that, okay? Dragon Age 2 did give you at least a snippet of where the game was going in Part 3. And there is this group of people who are saying, well, we're hardcore fans, and you know what? You shouldn't be mad that the ending was short because there's going to be DLC that'll flesh out stuff later. And then Dragon Age 3 will come out, and that'll continue the story more. And to that, I say, bullshit. I call bullshit. And here's why. I already paid $60, alright? I already paid, where the hell is it? The friggin' game. Here. I already laid down $60 to play Dragon Age 2. I don't want the ending of Dragon Age 2 after I pay another amount of money to do a DLC, or pay another amount of money to play Dragon Age 3. Now, this isn't the first time that I've said this kind of thing. When Mass Effect 2 ended, I was also mad at that game. I said, well, at least there was a resolution at the end of Mass Effect 2. And again, if you haven't beaten Mass Effect 2, I recommend that you don't listen to this. But at the end of Mass Effect 2, depending on the choices you made in the game, you get a definitive ending. Either your crew members survive or they die. And based off of that, you know, because your actual save file from Mass Effect 2 is going to carry into Mass Effect 3, you know what's going to happen. Now, I said this was a cop-out, and here's why. In Mass Effect 1, the entire plot of the game is the Reapers are coming. The Reapers are coming. They're going to invade the universe, okay? The entire plot of Mass Effect 2 was based off almost like a side plot that the Reapers had taken this ancient civilization and corrupted them to work for them, and they were kidnapping people to make a giant human Reaper, okay? It made no sense. Why do the Reapers need a human Reaper? Made zero sense, and it was never really explained, and at the end of Mass Effect 2, you're pretty much right at the same point you were at the end of Mass Effect 1, the Reapers are coming. So it was almost like the whole game, even though it was outstanding, the gameplay was excellent, the characters were interesting, I invested a significant amount of time of it, just like I did with Dragon Age 2, it almost felt like filler. It felt like this is not significant because nothing that really happened in this installment is going to affect what happens in Mass Effect 3. Now this could all change with the DLC that's coming out tomorrow, which is Mass Effect 2's Arrival DLC, but the same point stands for this as does for Mass Effect 2. Why am I forced to spend more money and put in more of an investment of time to figure out an ending to a game I've already beaten? Why do I need to spend more money to get a bridge between Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3? That's not how it should work. It should be, I bought Part 2, I beat Part 2, I know what happened at the end of Part 2. Oh, okay, if they want to continue with Part 3, then that is something I can choose to do, but at least I know what happened at the end of Part 2. This is what I like to call sequel syndrome, okay? And it's happening a lot with video games and movies and TV series these days. When you know there's going to be a sequel already established, they cop out, they don't give you an ending, and they kind of lead you on so that you'll pay more money to buy a DLC or buy the sequel to figure out what happened to the characters from your game. That's fucking bullshit. It's disrespectful to the consumer. It's disrespectful to the people who've paid money and already invested a significant amount of time in that installment already. It's not fair. And it shouldn't. It's a bad writing. It's a bad marketing ploy, basically, to get you, to egg you on to spend more money. That's exactly what it is. Now, compare something like this with games like these. Dragon Quest, okay? The Dragon Quest series, yes, it has up to 9 parts now, okay? So you always know there's going to be another Dragon Quest. But the difference between the Dragon Quest series is that they know that each installment is a completely new and separate story from the previous installments, similar to Final Fantasy and some of those other role-playing games. So when you beat Dragon Quest VI, you know what happened to those characters, and you know the story is complete, and you're going to get a decent ending that explains what's going on in that universe. You don't have to worry about buying Dragon Quest 7, 8, and 9 to get the ending of what happened to the characters in Part 6, okay? So that's a major difference. The old traditional RPGs didn't know if they were going to get sequels, didn't, you know, count on, okay, our story will continue at some point, so fuck this, let's cop out and not even write a fucking ending that's worthy of anything so that you'll go buy the next installment. Now, one other thing that I want to bring up is Final Fantasy 13. Now, as you know, I actually didn't like the game that much. I thought the gameplay of the game was a ridiculous grind, and the plot was very confusing until the very last quarter of the game. You really didn't understand what was going on, and then at the end it got really good. So the thing is, if you haven't beaten Final Fantasy 13 again, spoiler alert, but at the end of Final Fantasy 13, yeah, the ending actually is kind of short, but the ending gives you a firm resolution of what's happened to all of your characters, and you feel like the game is complete. Now, compare that to a game like Dragon Age 2, okay? Final Fantasy 13, I don't know if you've heard this yet, it actually is getting a direct sequel. It's going to be called 13 Part 2, or whatever the hell they're going to call it. And so the story, even though it had a definitive ending in Part 1, was so good, they were able to actually make a sequel that's going to continue the plot line. And they didn't have to cop out and say, well, buy Part 2 to figure out what happened to the characters from Part 1. They were able to complete the plot, and now if you choose to continue that plot, you can buy the next game and continue the story. It's up to you. With Dragon Age 2, it's mandatory that you buy the DLCs or you buy Dragon Age 3 to find out what happened. And that's fucking bullshit, okay? At least, and another movie series a lot of people bring up is the Star Wars franchise. At the end of Part 1, they had no idea if there was going to be a Part 2 or 3, so at the end of Part 1, there was a definitive ending. Then, when they found out there was going to be a Part 2 or 3, yeah, there were 2 more sequels. And although at the end of The Empire Strikes Back, there are a lot of unanswered questions, it at least is an interesting story that does end at that point, and if you choose to continue to go on, you can, but you know what's going on with your characters. You know that Han Solo's in Carbonite, you know that Luke found out that Darth Vader is his father and he got his arm chopped off, and you don't know what the heck's going to happen with him, and you find out that he and Leia are sisters. Like, you find out all this stuff that's like all these bombs are dropping, and you're like, wow, that plot was so good that I now want to go spend money on Part 3. Dragon Age 2 is like, well, there were no bombs dropped. There was nothing really interesting happening at the end. They just ended the fucking story, and now they want you to go spend more money on the next part. And it's like, give me a fucking break. That's just, it doesn't make any sense, and in my mind, it's not acceptable. So that's my verdict on it. If you're going to have a game where it requires a significant investment of time and money to beat the game better damn well have a definitive and interesting ending that makes it worth my time and make me feel like it was, you know, I'm completed at the end of that game, and that it was worth it to do all that work, okay? it's not fair to do these cop-out endings where they want you to spend more money to get the next installment. Because after all, what if I hated Dragon Age 2, but I said I just want to beat it just to get it over with, to say I beat it since I bought it, and you don't want to play Part 3? You've just been completely fucked, because you have no idea what happened to anyone at the end of your game, and basically BioWare said, fuck you, we don't care. If you're not going to buy the next game, you don't get to find out what happened to anyone in your game, and you just wasted 60 hours of your life. So, not acceptable, in my opinion. My verdict, if you're going to have a long game, have a good payout ending. That's a definitive ending. And then if someone chooses to continue with that universe through DLCs, through sequels, then so be it. Then you can continue with the plot, but don't make it mandatory that people spend more money to get an ending to something they've already beaten. That's fucking bullshit. That's the king's verdict. So, fuck that shit. I'm really pissed about the end of Dragon Age 2. I still am, because again, I have other games I could have played, I have other things I could have done, and I've invested so much time in it just to get that stupid fluff shit ending that, really, I think I owed an apology. Because I should be given the next 3 DLCs for fucking free if they add to the ending of the game, because that should have been in the game to begin with. That's my opinion. That's the king's verdict. So I'm DSP. Please, the whole purpose behind this video is to spark discussion on the subject. So go right ahead, in the comments, go to work, go nuts, argue with each other. I want to see both sides of the argument and what people are saying. Also, remember, I have a website, thekingofhate.com. There's already a thread there in my playthroughs thread about the Dragon Age 2 ending where people have been sparking discussion, and I actually posted a couple times in there. Head over there if you want to, in a forum atmosphere, debate it, and you can do it there as well. So, anyway, that's it. I'm out of here. I'm the King of Hate. Thanks a lot. See you next time for the King's Verdict.